Nikki Haley has been gunning for a one-on-one race with Donald Trump for the Republican nomination. And now that Ron DeSantis has dropped out, she finally has one, with just a day to go before the polls close in the New Hampshire primary. But Donald Trump is still close to 20 points ahead of Haley in the latest poll. At this point, is there any chance she can close the gap? Boston Public Radio host Jim Braude and Margery Eagan join me now from Manchester to weigh in. Thank you both so much for being here. Thanks for joining us.
Our pleasure, Tori.
Happy to be here.
So what's the energy? I mean, I've been there with you. You've covered a million of these. Usually it's really kind of chaotic in Manchester. Like, I've seen people live blogging down the street, people in costumes, protests, rallies. Like, there's so much energy around this. What is it like this year? It's kind of a weird year.
I would say the energy level is cut in half considerably. I mean, there are more people up here today, but it's not like it was before, where you'd see the candidates walking around the hotel here, where you'd see all the famous network anchors walking around the hotel. It's much more subdued.
Well, with one exception. You were outside the Trump rally the other night. People were standing in line for 4 hours in teen temperatures
Freezing.
to get in to see Donald Trump. So I would say the energy level for Trump appears to be typical energy level for Trump.
I had frostbite just waiting in line with them for like a half an hour. They were out there for hours. I don't know how they did it.
I've noticed the same people each year. So the first year I went, I met these people who were out there in full snowsuits in their tents with like the propane heaters. And then the second year I came back and they offered me hot chocolate. They were like, oh, you were here from last year, right? Like, well, tell us more about the Trump event. I know you were just in line, right? You didn't actually go in, but that's the real event, I think, is that line and the energy of that crowd.
Well, our colleague, Aidan Conley, went in there, and he was put in the reporter's pen. He had to go in at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock for a rally that started at 7, so he had a long wait inside. But he said the energy there was huge, thousands of people, and every time the president, former president, I should say, mentioned something about the media, all these thousands of people turned around, and they looked right at Aidan, and they booed and hissed.
But, you know, Tori, there's not nearly enough attention paid to what Trump said at a rally, I think it was the night before, when Donald Trump, who goes out of his way at every opportunity to say Joe Biden is too old, crooked Joe Biden, as he would say, is too old to be president of the United States, the guy, for a significant period of time, Donald Trump, confused Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley when he was saying he offered 10,000 troops, which is also not true. He meant to say Nancy Pelosi, but said Nikki Haley. That's troubling, and that's really troubling for those who are concerned about the age of Joe Biden. I would suggest they look at the other side of the aisle. There's some serious issues there.
Well, that's something that Nikki Haley has really been emphasizing, too. She's been talking a lot about his age. I think what's been surprising, and, you know, it's been kind of a slow...
Both of their age.
Right, both of their age. What is your perception right now of her? I know she kind of snuck up, and I think you'd mentioned this on Talking Politics, that you're really... You know, it's hard to make predictions right now, but it looks like she's doing really well, at least in New Hampshire.
Well, the polls suggest she's not. The polls suggest, the most recent polls, with one outlying poll, which had her tied last week, American Research Group, 40-40 with Trump. The polls that came out today, CNN had her 16 points down. I think Suffolk, David Paleologos had her 19 points down. The point I was trying to make, and I'm not one of those people say, oh, I was never polled, so they're illegitimate. Polls are generally pretty accurate these days. However, New Hampshire voters, Tori, are pretty contrarian types. And I think most people agree that if Trump wins, particularly if he wins by more than a little here, the Republican primary is over after Iowa and New Hampshire. And I'm not sure that New Hampshireites want to be part of that. Now, I may be dead wrong, and the polls suggest I am, but I think that may be Haley's best choice. Do you buy that or no?
Well, I think if you talk about energy levels, and who knows how indicative those are, but I mean that people were at the Nikki Haley rally. It was very kind of calm. The room filled up slowly. We're talking a few hundred people. And as you mentioned before, I didn't see any propane tanks yesterday, but there were people by the thousands outside waiting in all these hours. And you ask them about the 91 indictments. You ask them about the E. Jean Carroll civil liability for sexual assault and defaming. They don't believe it's true.
Or don't care.
Well, most of them said they didn't believe it was.
Really?
They didn't believe it was true, or even that the election was won by Biden. So you have a very cult-like following there for the former president, and with an incredible amount of devotion and enthusiasm.
I know there were studies that came out during the Trump presidency that showed that when you present people with facts, often people become more reinforced in their beliefs, and I think that was shown in a lot of. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's an energy and an environment. You can ask about it, but having those conversations about facts never really seems to go anywhere. It's strange. I don't know. I think. Do you feel that you could be right now? We talked a little bit about the energy of this event, but do you feel that you could be at the last ever New Hampshire primary? I mean, the DNC is has made their decision. Is this it?
Well, Tori doesn't mean the end of democracy.
I know,
that's why you're laughing.
But one of our texters actually did say this, that if Trump wins, this will be the last primary ever.
Anywhere.
Ever. Yeah, so, but go ahead.
No, but, the point that was made, who made this point to us? Chuck Todd from NBC, the political division. He runs it, was with us. And he said it might be the last primary here, not for the reasons end of democracy, hopefully, but because both Iowa and New Hampshire, which assumedly, if Trump wins, the Republican governors in those states, Kim Reynolds and Sununu, endorsed other people. DeSantis in Iowa, Haley here. Why would he want to deal with these places? And his point, this is Todd's point, is how about Alabama? How about a deep red state where Trump is beloved, sort of like how Joe Biden is beloved in the first primary state, South Carolina. And so I would say that that the future of New Hampshire is not only hanging, but, well, it's already lost the Democratic first in the nation. I'd say the likelihood of it being the Republican first in the nation ever again is virtually nil.
I wanted to just quickly, we don't have a ton of time. I wanted to get back to Ron DeSantis dropping out. We have a clip from DeSantis on NBC News, and he was talking about how he was criticizing Trump here, talking about how he would accept anyone who would kiss the ring.
It's almost like with Donald Trump, if you don't kiss the ring, you could be the best governor ever and he'll trash you. You could be a terrible, corrupt politician, but if you kiss his ring, then all of a sudden he'll praise you.
So he's turned around, obviously, he's turned around and endorsed Trump. Do you see a similar path for Nikki Haley? Or what are people saying about that?
Well, Haley has said, not only Haley, but Sununu, who's been outwardly critical of Trump incredibly. Both Haley and Sununu have said if Trump is the nominee, they'll vote for him. So much for Donald Trump being unfit to be president in their estimation. They're loyal to their party candidate, even if the guy is accused of 91 felonies, found liable for sexual abuse, found to be a perpetrator of fraud. Apparently, that does not matter, even to those who are running against them, Tori.
But some of our guests today said that they thought she would hang in because you don't know what's going to happen with these indictments. And if the former president is found guilty of some of these things, that might change some votes. So she may be waiting in the wings and hoping something happens bad for the president in one of these criminal cases.
By the way, the rumor is, I haven't seen it yet, when DeSantis did kiss the ring, he kissed the ring in those white rubber boots of his that are so appealing. So who knows?
He always has a heel. We have about a minute left. I wanted to get to something really important, just on the subject of not always seeing what's coming. Margery experienced a bit of a moment of shock. We have a clip.
Go ahead.
That was I banging into the wall several times when I was a little bit confused about it. You see the glass walls behind us? Well, they're so well cleaned and Windex, I thought that perhaps I was walking straight to Jim. It was not the case.
But look at her. She's fine.
I survived.
No harm, no foul. That's what we say here up in New Hampshire.
It can be difficult to see things even when they're right in front of you, But, Jim, I wanted to mention just, you've been ragging on Margery about this all day. And is it not true that you drove interstate travel because your hotel neglected to refill your coffee pods? So you came all the way home and then went back to New Hampshire in a 24-hour period?
I will neither confirm nor deny the truth of that, Tori. So nice try.
They refilled mine, Tori, at the front desk. Worked out very well.
Okay, well, as long as it worked out and you got your coffee pods. All right. Thank you both so much. Thank you for joining us.
Great to see you, Tori.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chester, thanks.